And good morning, everyone, and welcome to our program. Thank you all for joining us today to learn more about resiliency, agility, and productivity, practical actions for workplace continuity. My name is Scott Gingold. I am President-elect of the Northern New Jersey ATD chapter, and I am your host for today. We welcome our Northern New Jersey Association for Talent Development members, along with our regional chapter members from Mid-New Jersey, Long Island, New York City, Eastern Pennsylvania, and Greater Philadelphia chapters. We also welcome all guests, and we trust you will find value in our topic and sharing ideas. We have a terrific hour filled with strategies and skill building best practices to connect and collaborate as we survive and thrive during these unprecedented times. We briefly want to extend a big thank you to our Northern New Jersey ATD team who worked together to prepare and deliver this webinar for you today. So we want to thank Nancy Cattle, our current president, Pam Sammarco, VP of Leadership and Talent, for developing and facilitating today's presentation, Carrie Ballone, VP of Communications, for preparing and delivering the event communications, Jack Appelman, past president, for being our chat monitor today. And finally, we want to extend a thanks to WJM Associates for sponsoring our Zoom room today. Now allow me to introduce our facilitator for today, Pam Sammarco. Pam founded Green Training Associates, LLC in 2009 to develop exceptional leaders and talent to solve the world's challenges and build sustainable organizations. Green Training Associates accelerates business growth through training, talent, coaching, and career solutions. Pam offers expertise as a solution architect, consummate instructional designer, master facilitator, and performance coach. Pam is a longtime Northern New Jersey ATD chapter member, past president, and currently serves as VP for Leadership and Talent. Now I would like to turn it over to Pam to begin the presentation.
Thanks, Scott, and everyone for participating. Welcome and good morning. Happy Friday. I'm delighted to be here and being able to offer this topic for you. So first and foremost, we extend our thoughts and prayers for you and anyone in your lives who have been affected by the coronavirus 19 and the cascade of changes and impact that it's having on our lives. So during these challenging times, today's program is about you. And as business professionals who operate at this lightning speed, when something like the coronavirus impacts our world, our community, our company, and home life, it all becomes, all-encompassing. This is especially true when it can be deeply affecting our well-being and our employees, clients, and everyone in our lives are turned upside down. So we're responding today with this webinar to help navigate these unprecedented, uncertain circumstances that require quick decision-making through ambiguity and certainly a priority for human relationships. So in the spirit of what I call social sustainability, we're committed to protecting the health, well-being, and safety of our professional community. So my role as a facilitator is simply to build skills, offer some practical ideas, be your sounding board today, or your brainstorming partner to innovate solutions of your challenges and your workplace continuity. So you can see we've got 3 learning outcomes on the left, and the Sustainable Development Goals, there's 17 of them, but I think the most prominent one is about good health and well-being during this public health crisis. And of course, we have a bunch of themes for today, and these I've woven throughout, so you're not going to see like each of these bullets per se, but what you're going to see is, I think, a great story that I have written for you today. So I want to remind you, of Zoom etiquette on the right. So we're in a listen-only mode. Choose to put your video on or not. We are recording our program today and invite you to use the chat window to make comments, share ideas, assume positive intent, respect diverse perspectives, and eliminate any distractions that may take your attention away from the program. We know how easy it is to multitask, and I'm inviting you your undivided attention this morning. So what to expect? Well, we're having an interactive conversation. So you're going to see me pop up with a slide that says, let's talk. And that's an opportunity for interaction. But we will certainly take questions and chat throughout the program. We have Jack Appelman, who is our chat monitor today. Thanks, Jack. And I invite you to offer questions, comments, anything on your minds. This is really your program. So I could put out the whole content and just simply say, let's talk. But we are, providing some structure to our discussion. Be curious and open to this learning experience. I invite you to experiment here because it's a safe environment, and also take good notes. So let's talk. What are you curious to learn today? So this is the first slide that you'll see throughout, and the question will change. So tell us in the chat, what is on your minds? What are you curious? What brought you out? Help others be resilient. That's a great one, Paul. Thanks, Katie. The concept of resilience is fascinating. I can't wait to dive into it with you. Coaching others. Yeah, that's big. I find myself helping a lot of people. What elements do you put into the idea of resilience? So we got a whole bunch of them for you, Erin. The challenges that we're all sharing. Yeah. So there was, Marion, there may not be answers, actually. I think what we end up with is, how to navigate. So the basis for that we'll be sharing, because some of these things are out of our control, but it does make us feel helpless. Well, good. Thanks for your ideas. So let me offer you the opportunity to create your action plan today. So I invite you to, one of my favorite things is starting now, find ideas that motivate you to change and collect those ideas for at least 3 actions to take with you today. So the learning goes into your goals, intentional change that turns into actions and habits and success. So let's talk. What are your challenges and concerns, and how are they impacting you? So I think your ideas in the chat pop up some additional thoughts, like what's really weighing you down, where are the concerns, and how's the impact for you? Helping managers and coaching others remotely. Yeah, there's so many great resources about that, Peter. I certainly think, we'll touch on some ways that we can support them. This webinar could be made available to your managers if you'd like. It'll be recorded, but I'm glad to deliver the webinar to anyone on this call that would like the program brought inside to their company. Yeah. Because it's a pretty standard one. It's not specific to training professionals. Well, that's our community, but the program is not directed at learning professionals specifically.
Pam, I see we have some very interesting comments about what managers should be doing with their teams from Paul and from Erin, and people that aren't following through the way they normally do. And from Marion, is there a key element of motivation within uncertainty? So very interesting perspectives.
Oh, extreme variations of workload. Yeah, that's a big one. So we're going to talk about some of those, excuse me, later toward the end. So you'll see the story will unfold, and that there's 3 mini modules. So that's in the 3rd mini module. Challenges for independent consultants. Yeah, the gig economy has been hit really hard. How to lead people back to their workplaces. Is that in a virtual workplace, Marion, or is it when you go back to the office physically? Because there is like a transition back. That's some great ideas building. Physical, yeah. Good questions. We are stuck in neutral, absolutely. Tony, there's no easy answer for that one, because everyone feels that. Starting virtually toward the physical re-engagement. Yeah, I don't have anything specific on that, Marion, But I can tell you, I've been doing a lot of reading. There's some links that will lead us to a little more detail. We've got an hour today, so let's proceed. Thanks everyone for sharing those ideas. So it will be raining new ideas. I hope we'll address most of your concerns, or you'll take some path for what we've provided to you and take it back to where you need to apply some of these ideas. So what I did was I actually took a step back and I was looking at this, and I want you to check out this list of fascinating terms that I've been gathering for several weeks now. We're learning, adapting, and using a new common language of catchphrases that educate us, remind us, change our behavior, and celebrate contributions. So the outcome basically is a language that strengthens our social connectedness, because we all know what flatten the curve means now, right? So today's webinar, what I like most interestingly is that a lot of people sharing their gifts and their talents through YouTube videos. This is my gift to you and my community with my skills and best practices to navigate these life-changing conditions. So I wanted to share my gift, and I felt this program was one way to do that. So, and you can add your own ideas. So has anyone seen any other fun terms or interesting things that jumped out at them? There's some, I left some yellow boxes to add your own ideas to this list.
Another interesting comment, Pam, from Michelle about how employers can engage with remote employees. Certainly a challenge a lot of managers are going through. And to support them, to help them feel more productive, to continue to feel the company culture. How do you continue to convey what the company culture is when people aren't physically at the company?
It's a great question. I know that there's been some research on that specifically, so let me offer to follow up and drop a note back to everyone, because I've been gathering some links as well. But that's a very specific issue, which is keeping remote workers engaged. And so this may shed some light on that, but and be directionally correct. And I think that there's lots of resources out there, and I think that probably making those resources available to be giving you a specific strategy that may be more direct than just an answer for this time as we do a broad brush on the topic. So good. Okay. So I created this future readiness learning model as a result of this, and our conversation really today centers around that future readiness, which is a cyclical, circular, and repeatable process. And resilience, basically, in the definition of this, means that we will bounce forward versus the bounce back, which is the more common expression. So bouncing forward means that you will not go back to the previous state of life and activities as they used to be. Some things will return, and I think some things will be changed forever. So to bounce forward, we're going to enter this circle at the mindfulness, the orange pie slice, about being present. And it's about acknowledging the severity of the circumstance, identifying the impact on our health, our work, our home life, and immediate risks. So we're going to then flow from mindfulness. We've understood the circumstance. We're compliant. Some are not compliant, but that's another conversation. But we're flowing to the green slice about learning. So when we look at translating the risks and understanding of the circumstance as we're present, we move into learning, because then we need to start thinking, okay, things are changing. There's a lot of dramatic shift in activities in the economy and everything shutting down. So we flowed from learning and understanding it to adapting our behavior. So through our learning, we're then learning about adapting new behaviors. We're working from home, remote learning for kids, wearing masks, and we're using that learning to adapt. And through adaptation, we're going to move to grow, which is where ultimately we're going into this current state of adapting to growing into a new state of things. And then there's this, optimally, we're going to emerge into a transformed state where innovation then plays a critical role in changing our personal and professional lives. I've talked to some people who have said they never see people going back to an office, and that remote workers will be so successful that they won't need to return to a physical office setting. That's one opinion, and that's young professionals telling me, if we can be effective here, why would we ever go back to an office? And then I've heard other people say that that will change. So there's a lot of different opinions, but this is one model that you'll see pop up throughout. So what ends up happening, though, is our future readiness is about being ready to respond when life changes the rules. So when life changes the rules, we need to use mindfulness, learning, and adaptation for new behaviors. And this quote, I didn't write this quote, but I think it's brilliant. The virus doesn't move, people move it. We stop moving, the virus stops moving, the virus dies. It's that simple. So that's one corollary to the statement over life changing the rules. And the second one is using growth, innovation, and transformation to thrive when life changes the rules. And there's two major sports figures. You could see Mike Tyson. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And that's about mindfulness, adaptation, and growth, because he talks about the new plan has to deal with the reality right now. So you've got that plan. Everyone's plan was thrown out the window when this happened. So now we're trying to adapt and we're trying to grow. And then we have Wayne Gretzky, who I think is also brilliant. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. And that's about innovation and transformation. Ultimately, he's saying success is a moving target. And that's where we, as we transform, need to continue to be successful regardless of the changes. We still need to forge forward. And that's the resilience where we're bouncing forward, because we'll never go back. And that's where in the change of the way we operate will be different forever. So I've got 3 skill building mini modules for you and some positive practical actions as we dive into personal resiliency and coping strategies first. And then we'll flow down to the other 2 modules. So you'll see that slide again. But I want to call out the concept of resilience. And I think someone had asked that in the chat earlier. This is an essential part where I don't think it's ever too late to develop an emergency readiness and continuity action plan for both work and home. It feels like a storm cloud overhead that's looming. And when you feel helpless to stop that storm and you get consumed by news reports and abrupt changes to daily and home and work life, I'm encouraging you to create an action plan. And the action plan is a sorting and compartmentalizing exercise. So you may proactively manage your stress by sorting and prioritizing your concerns into actionable behaviors. So we're going to go from the left column to the right. So you start in the left column, figuring out what you can and can't control. So you can't control the status of the news reports, but you can decide how relevant they are and the actions you need to take from them. Work status, family life, finances, and you can add your own ideas. But first just lay it out. What's going on for me, and how can I compartmentalize it? You want to make a plan for what you can control. So your compliance to stay at home, mental, spiritual, emotional state, use of your available time. I find that the activity expands to fit the time. So if I have 8 hours to do one task, it might take me the whole 8 hours instead of what used to be more compressed and more productive. So that's where we are spinning. And I think Tony said it feels like we're treading water here. And it's getting your mindset to have a response to the way the change is happening differently. So we'll talk about that a bit later. I have another few thoughts on it. But I want you to make peace with what you can't control. That's the hardest part of feeling helpless, which is we don't know the virus timeline and the return to normalcy. We can't control that. The virus does, right? We can't control sickness and the loss of life. We can extend our sympathies, check on people. How can we help people that are more challenged? We can't control government actions. So those kind of things is where we're navigating from bouncing forward. It's about being resilient. It's organizing and compartmentalizing and trying not to feel overwhelmed. So another idea is the Quake-Proof resilience. So this is bouncing forward for continuity, because today we're going to use the analogy of building a quake-proof life. Science and technology have made great strides in developing designs for earthquake-proof buildings. So think about the architects in the areas like Japan and California that regularly have earthquakes. Their architects have become really smart in building a firm foundation for the building, going deep into the earth with the foundation. And then the top of the building is architected so that it sways when there's an earthquake, so that the strong winds and the ground shaking doesn't take the whole building down. It flays and it flexes and it sways with the shaking of the earthquake. So if it's built with those firm pillars, then it's more resilient because the building won't come down. And that's why it's flexible when it's shaken. So when you look at the firm foundation on the left, these are the characteristics of building a firm foundation in your life. And then the flexibility when shaken, here are the skills and the best practices for you to start thinking about, that when there is an earthquake like the coronavirus or anything else that's a major life crisis, personally or in society, you have these skills or tools in your toolbox. So let me dip into, we're going to start with those bullets on the left. The strong self-esteem. You're probably wondering, how does self-esteem or confidence in one's own worth and abilities, what does that have to do with being resilient? Well, basically, self-esteem is important to resilience because having resilience depends in part on having confidence in your own abilities in the face of obstacles and uncertainty. So you're going to see self-esteem pop up a few times. The second element is strengthening your support network. So if you take your proactive approach to build a resilient, firm foundation, it's about making and maintaining connections with others. So your self-esteem is strengthening within yourself, and then you're strengthening your support network is strengthening between you and others. So those are both necessary. It helps you be more resilient to stress, and stronger connections help reduce the impact to your life because you have people that are supportive. So those opportunities are for you to consider. I think one of the most important things on this slide for me is to remember that networking is about reciprocity. So being genuine in interest and reaching out to others is where you're there for them and they're there for you. So I think that's one of the most important things for me when I look at how I network, and helping each other is really important, in addition to the other tips on the slide. So SMART goal setting. Building your foundation of resilience has to do with being able to bounce forward, where you're adapting, navigating, and creating continuity for yourself. And it's about making progress. It's not perfection, but the goals do provide a purpose, direction, and commitment and motivation. So staying true to your purpose, no matter what's going on, you still have a greater intention that you set and you follow that. Now your path probably is going to change the way you get there through innovation and managing change. It's definitely not perfect. And sometimes it takes, multiple efforts to get where you are going, or that you have to take different paths to get around whatever the challenges are, and you're changing. So it's about it's pivoting basically what you intended. How do I get from point A to point B? It's never a straight line, and this may just create a different timeline for your goals. It may create a different path. You might have to be creative in problem solving or innovating to adapt. So I know all of us are thrown for a loop. If you're used to teaching instructor-led workshops or whatever your normal work activity is, now we're all in this place where all the learning goes remote. So it's then picking up learning technology for if you're a training professional. And if you're in another type of work, all of the work has gone remote. And so there's essential workers that are going to the job, but then the majority of the workforce is not. So the SMART goal setting, it's part of building the foundation of resilience. So take a minute and read through these 5 statements. I want to give an activity here to enable us to look at what does it look like to assess your resilience skills. This is a brief, it's a brief activity. There's more questions, but I thought let me throw up a few of them for you to think about for yourself. So take a look at these. Which ones jump out at you? Like how resilient do you see yourself? 4. Okay. So if you can say yes to most of these, you're pretty resilient, but you start to see where you may where you may be able to start to adjust. And we're going to talk about some of these, building your skills in these areas. Cool. All right, good. I see some good responses. Nice.
It's interesting, Pam, that few people put all of them, I guess, and depending on the situation, people feel they're either less or more resilient, depending on what they have to deal with.
Yeah, that's a show of all of those firm foundation elements, because that's what these are. Basically, these are a representation of the firm foundation. Good. All right, thanks for sharing, everyone. Appreciate your comments. So what I built was my Green Training Associate, so I call it GTA, Sustainable Future Model. And I look at this in two perspectives. On the left is the individual to be balanced, resilient, and agile. You are balanced with your mind, body, spirit, and well-being. And on the right, the individuals roll up to an optimal, balanced, sustainable organization, which is your company or society, with the human, ecological, economic, and cultural. So the colors do map from the left to the right. So as a lifelong yoga practitioner, I like to do a personal checkup for myself. When I review my mind, body, spirit connection to check my well-being, I decide which part of me might be out of balance, and that might be a priority for me when I start to focus on how do I need to adapt to this? What's not working for me? It may be I need to take a walk, take an hour and just take a walk around the neighborhood if I'm really feeling kind of cooped up, or, you know, just my low energy. So it re-energizes me because I recognize that my body is telling me something. So it's a fluid process. It's okay to adapt your coping strategy to connect your mind, body, spirit with a daily action plan. So it can be very simple. Your mind activities need you to solve a problem, adapt your routines differently. You need to protect your health with hand washing more often. And you might need to spiritually strengthen your social connections as a support network. I spoke with someone recently. She has a prayer group that meets every morning, and she leads the prayer group on Zoom. And it really gives her a start to her day. It gives her connection to people, and it gives her a reason to get up because she's responsible to get organized to host that at a specific time every day. So those kind of ideas are ways to consider what coping strategies we can infuse, as well as considering how to make sure that we're balanced. So what else does resilience look like? Well, in the moment coping strategies. Now, this is a critical slide because in order to be resilient, you need some tools in your toolbox to cope with being when you're upset. So allowing yourself a bad day is critical. During these times, forgive yourself, because everyone I've spoken to is on a roller coaster. They're feeling this, some days are good, some days are bad, some days the news is better, some days the news is not. And, you know, I would consider lightening your load without a lot of pressure, making 2 tasks lists, one that are must-dos and some that are optional. And they may be personal and work. And I find that that's how I operate, because as in business 11 years as an entrepreneur, there has to be some structure to my work week. And I like to use Pam's 3 rules, my rule of 3 things a day. So Pam's rule of 3 things is pick the 3 most important things that you're going to make progress on, that you're going to feel good, and that will assist you in just taking steps. And it's not perfection, it's progress. Look for the good. I think that's part of the joy of what's going on, is there's a lot of good happening in the world. Ask for help when you need to. There's lots of resources. If you're in New Jersey has a mental health line, and the COVID website for the federal government, CDC, actually has mental health and anxiety resources. So there's definitely a need when we look to self-care and being, you know, well-being being paramount. So there's a bunch of ideas here, bullets, that are also helpful and pretty straightforward. I've seen a lot of tips. There's nothing, you know, too unusual about them, but maybe they'll strike a chord for you. Laughter is the best medicine. It's so hard to laugh, because I know people are saying, is it okay? And I think actually some people are actually passing around funny memes, or silly videos and ways to really engage it boosts your health, first of all. And it's not just a punchline, but the real reason we chuckle is to communicate with others. And the number one catalyst for laughter is not the joke, but it's actually interacting with another person. So yeah, Paul, we've got to laugh, right?
Pam, here's an interesting question, which is relevant to what you just talked about. How do you use this coping mechanism of building resilience when your workload has doubled? I'm blessed to be working, but the COVID-19 has rendered the HR role I'm in extremely more extensive.
That's a great question. I think it tests everyone to the limit in some circumstances, especially HR, because there's so much going on. You're an essential worker to help your company, and all of a sudden you've got workplace issues that you've never dealt with before. I would make sure that you reach out to resources because I think it's critical. There's a lot going on at the state level. Department of Labor and Workforce Planning, they're doing a tremendous job with some webinars and resources. You may also see if your general counsel can help navigate. But I think a lot of it is about prioritizing, and it's taking that deep breath saying, this is the contribution I'm making to my company at this time. And hopefully that contribution will be recognized. And I think that finding that you've got so much to do, it's keeping those activities really organized and prioritized. What are the most heavy-hitting challenges or critical situations that you must address? And just keep making progress. And if the work is not equally distributed, you may escalate that to a manager, but there may not be an answer because you simply need to do so much more given the circumstances. So I appreciate you sharing. I don't think it's not an ideal answer.
Yeah, and Marion had a comment. The challenge is that the HR leaders managing the frontline people are all on an even playing field. The HR leader is going through the same things as those they manage.
Absolutely. I've seen that everywhere because one of the earlier comments was about the gig economy and consultants and work. Everything's gone silent, crickets, because a lot of us are dealing with HR executives, and those HR executives are then tackling the priorities over furloughed workers, layoff, remote work situations, healthcare, all of those variables, the laws that govern, pay and benefits there's a myriad of things going on for HR that I think there's not an easy answer except to do what I think is the best course, which is how do you take everything that you have to accomplish, organize it by what is critical to be done that day and that can't wait, and that you sort of cascade some of the activities based on the urgency and the drive. So I think your ability to navigate and prioritize and just continue to plow down on it, because there is not going to be an answer. There will be an end. We know this is a temporary circumstance, and this is going to be a crunch time for HR. And I think
a couple of follow-up points from Lisa. Walking at a social distance with a friend, virtual happy hours, yoga, phone calls, sending cards to friends and family, all good stuff. And Marion added, this is where coaching or some type of help transcends those boundaries. Well said.
Absolutely. I think there's a ton of great ideas there, and supporting each other is essential, and finding a way to embrace, the circumstance. So, we see some of the healthcare workers that are in the full PPE gear, and they have their badge with a picture of themselves smiling. So when they're approaching a patient, the patient is scared. They can actually see who's underneath all of that mask and gear. So those are those kind of moments where you have a breakthrough moment where you're thinking, how can I make this person comfortable? I would think about the greater good for your company, because HR professionals are going to be going through one of the most challenging things. It's the people side of this equation from a company standpoint versus the medical side. When I look at the healthcare frontline workers, my sister is a frontline worker, and I can't say enough about how she's overseeing 3 facilities, rehabilitation facilities, they're centers for the food and nutrition, and it's extraordinarily stressful. I talked to her yesterday, there's no easy way. So I sent dinner to her house for her family tonight. So every week I'll send a meal, because end of week, Friday, it's a stressful time. So it's finding those moments to be kind when you can. There may be just a reach out for, for your clients if you are a consultant. I've just been keeping in touch with the HR executives, send them a note, how can I help? And I'm trying to adapt to what their priorities are. If they want me to do something other than the talent development's not top of mind for them with the fires that they're fighting. So I'm offering, how can I help something else? Or can I take a simple activity away that would take your time, that would allow you to focus on the unexpected challenges? So that's the adaptation. It's not my priorities, it's their priorities. How can I adapt to be there for them? So I love your ideas, Lisa. I'm a yoga practitioner too. So I'm taking a Facebook live streaming yoga class, and I could send you the link if you'd like. Drop me a note. So that would be fun. So talent development absolutely has taken a back seat. So, okay, so we've got some, I agree with you. And we need to just push a pause button, doing the best we can, and keeping in touch, and then getting, slowly back on track when things start to come back from a business standpoint. So we got some good ideas. Let's continue to bounce forward on the next slide. So basically, we're in the right column now, where we're going to be talking about the flexible when shaken. So these are the moments we're going to talk about accepting change and flexible thinking, overcoming resistance, and the shifts and the new approach for skills that we're developing. So we're in the next module in the middle at agility and adapting to change. So when I say the word change, what comes to your minds? Pain, opportunity. Next. Excitement, good. Yeah, doing something different for a different result. That's a good one, Luz. Yeah, change is a constant, Peter, right? The unknown. Yeah. I think, for me, change is it is the way to think about the flexible thinking and the resilience. So what comes to my mind, I put some graphic up here: time for change, change ahead, societal change for the world, agents of change, some cool graphics. But basically, here's our conundrum, folks. Human beings are creatures of habit, and that's where we get caught up. So any pattern of emotion or behavior that's continually reinforced will become an automatic and conditioned response. So think about the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, you wear 20% of the clothes you own. 80% of the time, you cook 20% of the recipes that you know. We are comfortable with habits, and we're equally uncomfortable with change. So how can you create a habit of change? Well, the simple things on a daily basis. Try brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Try parting your hair on the other side. Take a different route to or from the office, or for a normal routine that you drive. Take a different roads. So those are ways to start thinking about the fact that we're comfortable as human beings. I have some other ideas for you on change. So we are habitual creatures. I like this guy because change is falling out of his pocket. So starting in the top left, what do I want to change? You need to learn your habits. What's my motivation to change? What do I need to learn to make that change? How convenient can I make that change so it's easy to do? And are there others making the same change too? So those are some visuals. Let me ask you to do another activity. Read these 5 statements and answer yes or no if it describes you.
And Pam, while we're waiting for some of the chat to come in, I just wanted to give you a time check. It's 11:43.
Yeah, we've got a lot to go.
Yes, we do.
Hurry up.
Great stuff.
All right. So I'm going to say we've got a couple of 5s. If you've got, if you think, you immediately criticize an idea, you quickly agree without asking questions, you agree to participate, pull back, you swing between positive and negative, you may have some change issues. So those were good answers. So why is change difficult? Well, let me spin through. Change equals loss, victim mentality, but becoming more resilient means changing your mindset toward change and seeing the positive opportunities it holds. So we want to overcome barriers, find a change buddy, avoid people who are naysayers, set new goals. But at the end of the day, focusing on what you can do, not what you can't do, is going to help you overcome your resistance to change. And the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. So here's your cognitive science. This is the most important slide, one of the most important slides of today's program. So we start unconsciously incompetent, which is our current state. We don't know what we don't know. We make a shift in awareness and thinking when information comes to us around urgency, impact, and the metrics. We're going, okay, now I'm starting to get that something is going on around change. And consciously, we then are aware of what we don't know, which is consciously incompetent. All of a sudden we're incompetent and we know it. We become curious and we have a desire to learn. But it takes motivation, incentives, convenience, community, reasonable choices, cost, and regulations. Some combination of those that drive us to a decision that we need to change and we need to shift. We need to learn about it, shift to action, make behavior change and social norms and impact. So all of those variables, we've shifted to action, we're becoming consciously competent. Well, I can do this mask thing when I go out, just leave it on the seat of my car, get in the car, put the mask on. Shift to habit, and we still need prompts to behave differently. But then ultimately we become unconsciously competent, which becomes a habit, and it becomes long-term success. So how to shift? Well, there's a bunch of skills. They're going to spend time. These are programs in and of themselves that my company offers, and there's certainly topics that are available generally. But I want to say flexible thinking is key. And the ability to shift your thoughts in order to respond to any given situation that shakes or sways you. That's what flexible thinking is. So I'm going to invite you to reframe your inner voice to positive self-talk. And I'll say briefly about that inner voice and reframing. There's 3 kinds of negative self-talk: the critic, the worrier, and the victim. And the critic, I could have done better, but we now know our self-esteem says, I accept and believe in myself. If I'm worried, I'm prepared for this worry. I'm rewriting and reframing. The victim I'll never be able to, but I'm capable and confident. So staying positive doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time, but it does mean that even on hard days, you know that better ones are coming. And you can see the hashtags. And I think courage is the number 1 for me, because courage is not being fearless, but it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So when society moves forward, what's the biggest change you expect? Let me ask that question, and then we'll move into our 3rd module and then close. So when society moves forward, what will be the biggest change you expect? Becoming obsolete.
People forgetting the process, being fearful. A new mindset around virtual teams. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're thrown into the deep end on that one, Peter, right?
Productivity decrease. Yeah. We let go of what we have learned.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Marion, it may be so deep. I think about how, major crises like 9/11 and other things have impacted us, the recession or depression, 2008, 2009. I don't know if we forget, or is it something that just becomes part of the norm? They won't have a vaccination till next year at minimum for this. And that's truly the only safety catch we have. And they're suggesting there might be a resurgence in the fall or the winter next year of COVID.
Yeah.
There may be outbreaks periodically. It may remind us, and we may have to change habits around social distancing.
Yeah. Also, redefining engagement. Engagement, it becomes re-engagement. So that's a big term, and certainly we're finding new ways to define engagement. And history has proven that though we forget and repeat our previous behaviors and habits,
Nice.
people will look for more purpose in how they live and work. That seems like a positive outcome.
Yeah.
And the social impact it will have on our youth.
Yeah, those are all fantastic answers. Thank you for sharing. So let's move into our third and final skill building mini module on productivity and workplace continuity. And then we'll, continue to engage for some closing slides as we finish our hour together. So workplace continuity, everyone's work situation is different. So I know there's essential workers, furloughed, newly remote workers, business owners, or people in transition. So these slides are really around adapting to a new circumstance. So if you are working, you're learning and maintaining HR remote work policies and guidance from your direct supervisor. You're in the HR role, so you're probably needing to work on those and enforce those policies. And I think that's could be a whole nother hour. So those that were asking about that, drop me an email, and I'm glad to find some links because I've seen some. So if you're not working, identifying your needs and building an action plan is critical because everything has changed. How we operate, groceries, paying bills, normal daily activities. We know it's all adaptation at this point and figuring out new ways to operate. And it is a relief sometimes to focus on work activities if you can. So I would turn the TV off, get news a couple of times a day. I know some people leave it on all day long. I mean, we're drowning in briefings and Zoom meetings and so forth and feeling like we're kind of caged up a bit. But, I put some music on and I try and check the news in the morning, maybe at lunch, and then in the late evening to see if there's anything. Take 15 minutes, get some information, know how relevant it is to you, and don't let it consume your day. And our emotions are brought down by receiving, I think a lot of information. So, and use Pam's rule of 3 things. So make those 3 things simple. It could be, I need to order pet food. I need to make sure I go for a walk today, and I need to make sure that I follow up on an email from a potential business opportunity. And if that's all I get done, then that's a productive day. So I'll invite you to think about productivity this way. I love this Aristotle quote, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So knowing yourself is the basis for how productive we can be, and it's also the basis for the resilience concepts that we spoke about earlier. And I want to introduce the idea that we're human beings, not human doings. And I think our society has gone productivity on steroids. And I know that there's pressure right now on HR because this is your shining moment to dive in and be there for your employees. It's going to be a temporary situation, so breathe. And define productivity broadly. Like I said, productivity is now, there's needs to be some acceptance and support for those remote workers that are going through something more than what meets the eye. Because I know it feels impatient that people are not doing their normal work day. It's not going to be normal for a while. I think I had heard IBM gave its workers, I think I had heard a month to just be and not do work. Now that said, I don't know the reality of that. It didn't come from an IBM person. Someone saw a news report that said that to me. So I think that it's a measure of tolerance. It's a measure of patience with people. You have no idea what their impacts are in their families with this. Is there someone in the hospital? What I would do is open lines of communication, if you are an HR professional, to those workers and those leaders that we saw in the Zoom chat that were saying you were having trouble engaging people. So the rules of remote work and work from home are 2 different things. So remote work is a worker that has a whole set of responsibilities that only works from home, and they're sanctioned that way. You've got work from home. That's people that are in the situation where they normally go to an office and now they're not. And so it's a matter of tolerance. Do they have children at home? They're trying to get their remote learning situation going for their kids. There's all kinds of variables. So open the lines of communication. If you're a manager trying to get your employees engaged, make sure that that they know what their commitments are. So I invite you to maintain optimism while being present, understanding and adapting to the current very serious situation, and also have a positive mindset and look for the good things, because America is strong and there's so much good going on that's overshadowing some of really what the hard things are that we have, feeling helpless and sad about. So work from home, here's some rules of the road. Basically, you've got accountability and you've got to fulfill commitments that you have to the best of your ability. And carve out a routine if you can. Work time and workspace, preferably not in your office, or your workspace should not be in a bedroom if you can help it. Get dressed, casual is fine, but you need to get up and get dressed like you're going to a job. Maintain those work rituals. People recommend a start and end time to your workday. Collaboration, meetings, social engagement, taking care of the things you need to, but there should be a start and end time to the workday, because as anyone that's been a business owner knows, you're an entrepreneur, you're like 24/7, you could work. It's the same feeling when you're a work from home associate. Use microtasks to build in movement during the day. Because if you're trying to sit at your computer for 8 hours in a workday and maybe you take a half-hour lunch break, it's not healthy for you. So build in that movement, even if it's they say micro breaks, 5 or 10 minutes. You might go change the laundry. Maybe you go make a plan for dinner, and you might get up and just take a few minutes rest, and just make break up your day. And for busy households, I saw this new tool called Owl Labs. It's kind of cool. So Owl Labs basically is you've got the like an online planning tool for your household rooms, like you would a conference room booking. You book household rooms. So it's kind of cool. Ensure your tech security is in place. We could spend a whole hour making sure that you have your VPN, your encryption, and especially if you're in a data sensitive company, making sure that if it's not that you have a separate device for home and for work, if possible, because there's certainly IT settings that take care of your business. There's a lot of hackers that are looking for opportunities, and you don't want to be one of those. So I was going to ask about your best practices for productivity in workplace. We'll save that. Move past that question. I'll invite you to, as we close, I've got 2 or 3 more slides. What are your key learnings from today? So give me some chat. What is important to you? Yes, Luz, I absolutely can. So let's see, maybe I'll ask maybe I'll ask Scott, just type my email in for me to the chat so people have it. It's on the final slide, but it's pam@greentrainingassociates.com. So pam@greentrainingassociates.com. Oh, Luz, great, being mindful. Yeah, super. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on us. I like that progress, not perfection also, Peter. But we just can't say enough about how the expectations, I think performance expectations have gone through the roof. Job descriptions are now what would be 3 people's jobs years ago. I'm in the workforce a long time with a corporate career for the first 24 years of my work life. I worked for 4 globals, and now performance expectations are generally through the roof, and during these times, and we need to be responsive and respectful. So yeah, cool. Pam's 3 rules, yeah. Rule of 3 things, good. Yeah, but that's it. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, the paradox of humans being creatures of habit versus massive change now.
Yeah. We've just been turned on our ear with this, right? That's the psychologist in me. I always think about the human side and human behavior, and I love that you appreciate that. Thank you. So let me continue to look at this chat as it's coming up. Good, thanks, Linda. All right, so I want you to review your action plan. You've given me some great insights that you've taken away, and I'm hopeful that you know, you're doing well with making notes, and that you found ideas that motivate you to change, and that you collected at least 3 ideas. So as we know, our learning process is imperative that we take it back to the job and our lives and do something different. I'll remind you of our GTA Future Readiness Learning Model, because we started here, so we're closing with looking at where we were most successful in evaluating, being present, learning, adapting, growing, and transforming. And I'll leave you with this thought as a final note for you. And the world heals as everyone comes together, and people stay home physically apart, yet spiritually together. So stay informed, resilient, agile, productive, courageous, mindful, healthy, and connected. And thank you for your attendance and for participating. Let me turn it back to Scott for a few closing remarks, as he's going to remind us of a couple of upcoming webinars for Northern New Jersey ATD.
Well, thank you, Pam, for a great presentation this morning. I'm sure everyone gained valuable information they can use immediately. I know that I did. I was thinking of kind of listing some of the top things that I learned, but I would end up just repeating everything you just said, so I won't do that. But thank you. Thank you again to WJM Associates for providing the Zoom room. Thank you, Jack, for monitoring our chat today. You did a masterful job. And please check out our website for upcoming events, and as well as a link to the recording of the session. And just a reminder, we have a webinar coming up on April 23rd on power leadership, which will be presented by Marianne Kotchard, our VP of Marketing. And then we have another installment in our regional webinar series coming up on sales enablement, improving sales performance through great training, and that'll be on April 29th with Roger Granis. Thank you again, Pam. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Be well, enjoy your weekend, stay safe and healthy. Thank you for participating today.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.